seems to have a problem. All looks normal here. There seems to be something missing in the next bit. Well, I might as well get in the lock. Might as well shut the gates. There are a couple of ways you can deal with problems like this. You can sort it out yourself. This is a fairly short pound. I would say you can see there's a little bit of water in it, but really there isn't water at all. So we've got to find out why it's like this first, because we might just be making things worse. Well, looking at the amount of water that was passing over the sill, I'd say that actually there's a problem with the seat of the sill. I think I should talk a bit about why this might happen. There are two sets of gates and paddles on a lock. That's two chances to stop the water from leaving the pound above. If there's a problem with the bottom gates, then the top gates and paddles will stop that water leaking. And if there's a problem with the top gates, the bottom gates and paddles will stop it leaking away. This means that normally you need two faults to get to this situation. There needs to be a problem at the top of the lock, and there needs to be a problem at the bottom of the lock. However, it's not always obvious without seeing water in the system and seeing where it is leaking out. So I'm going to try and solve the problem at one end of the lock and then find the issue at the other end of the lock. Now, there's some rubbish down there that could have caught and stopped the gate from making a good seal. Various reasons why this isn't making a good seal. It might be just that there's no water pressure on it to make a good seal, and the problem might be elsewhere. I can't see a paddle up. That'd be the next thing to look at. Now, I could open this gate, fill the pound with the gate open, it would fill the lock too. But one of the problems you see in here is why that's not always a good idea. You can see that we try to, bits of muck are getting caught on the sill, and so if you fill or run water through a lock, it's best not to do it with the gates open in case something gets trapped on the sill. So I'm going to close this gate up again, see if I can make it make a better seal, and go and let some water down from the top. Interestingly, it's very difficult to close, but it might just because it's a little unbalanced. Oh, I could feel it's very soft when I close it too, but you can also see it's not sealing at the top, because without a weight of water on the gate, they're bound to warp a little. So we'll get some water in here anyway, and see what it looks like after that. Of course, you don't have to do this yourself. You can call CRT and they will send men out to refill the canal. They will do it in such a way that there isn't a water shortage elsewhere, because all I'm going to do for now is steal some water from the next pound up, and that's an even smaller pound. However, it saves me having to walk right to the top of the lock flight. Certainly if you're unsure what to do in this situation, it's definitely worth calling CRT and letting them know it's a problem, because if they don't know it's a problem, they won't do anything about it. In the meanwhile, I'm going to try and sort some of this out myself. When a pound is like this, it does afford you a good idea of what the bottom looks like, where the shallow parts are and where the rubbish builds up. As you can see, about 70 foot from the tail of the lock is a large pile that gets pushed there when the paddles are open, but it's too heavy for the water to push it any further. These are occasionally dredged by CRT, but normally kept clear by the boat coming and going. One thing to note is you can see where all the gotchas are, and that fender isn't looking in the best of locations. Oh, and there's another one there that just see a pipe fender, which are always fun to get round your prop, especially if you've got a lot of rope on. So let's start filling this up. We've got some water in the lock, so I'm going to lift the gate paddle and start the process. Now this lock was only half full, but you can see how quickly it's starting to fill up, just because the shape of the canal is a bowl shape, so you can soon get water across the width of the canal. However, I'm going to need at least 3 foot of water to get my boat through, so I've got a bit more water to run. I'm going to now leave that paddle up and put the ground paddle up at the top of the lock. Let some water in from the next pound up. We'll have a look to see how much water is in it. Oh, reasonably full. Now if we take all the water out of this pound, obviously I'm going to have the same problem again. And if you had the time, and I might just do it anyway, I'm going to run some water down from the next pound up, because that's a slightly bigger pound. It's time for another one of my interjections here. This is a lock flight with no moored boats. However, if there was any moored boats in this pound, you must be very careful not to affect the water levels such that it will affect any of the boats in that pound. You must not leave the paddles alone and running. If you are taking on this yourself, you have to take the responsibility of controlling the water, ensuring that it's shut off at the right time, and ensuring that it's not affecting any other canal users. So this pound was just on weir, but it won't be long before it's well below the weir, as I take water out of here to feed the other pound. So I'm going to let a bit more water down from above, as I'm hoping that's also on weir. That'll give me enough water to keep this one from emptying and the next one filling. Here I am at the next lock, and I'm just going to put a little bit of paddle on because it's going to be a while till I get here, and I don't want to end up using more water than I need to. I'm going to lift this all the way up because I want the lock empty when I arrive, but I'm just going to put a small feed on this paddle here just to keep it in water. So I've just got a small feed on that one just to help the situation a little. Right, back down to the original lock and see how the water's getting on, and also see if there's any other major issues that means that we have to abort this and actually call CRT out. Now, running water like this is always risky, especially if you leave a lock. Some well-meaning person might put the paddles down. It's probably the least of your problem. Certainly if you're refilling a pound overnight and you think, oh well, I'll just put a little bit of paddle on and then in the morning I'll go and close it, because you'll find that the next pound up is then empty, because it's surprising just how much water can be used over several hours with a paddle. If you think about it, a lock only takes minutes to fill, so even a small amount of paddle will use millions of gallons of water over the hour. Water's gently flowing through this lock quite nicely. We'll see what's happening down there. It's starting to look more like a canal, however I think we've still got a long way to go. Possible causes of leaks can be around the gate, so the sill seal. It can be the paddle and the fact that they're not seating properly, or they may have debris course underneath them, so they're not actually all the way down. Sometimes it's very difficult to tell. Sometimes you can see from the flow of water where the problem stems from. Sometimes it's just through the brickwork, you never see it. Sometimes it's vandalism. There's many causes. But what's happening here? So the sill's made a good seal now, so that's a good sign. I was wondering whether it was going to be a greater problem, but chances are the last boat that went through this rock didn't fully check the seal, and the bottom paddles on these locks are very good at emptying, so even when you've got a big leak it's still empty, and an experienced person might not notice the water. One of the problems is that even though you might close the bottom gates, just like that top gate was leaning, the bottom gates don't always make a perfect seal, especially when the lock's empty. So sometimes if you have problems, especially at the top of the lock, and there's a lot of water flowing through the lock, it's better to fill the lock and make a good seal on at least one pair of the gates, especially if you're spending the night above the lock and somebody's been through since and empties the lock. Always worth a quick check to make sure there isn't a large amount of water flowing through the lock, and if there is, try and improve the seal by filling it up or putting at least some water in the lock to close the gates. I'm going to start filling this lock. Now, if there's a problem with the bottom gates, that might cause more water loss. And let's go check the bottom gate situation Make sure there's no big leaks there. Well, it's far from ideal, but I think maybe once more water gets on it, it'll seal better. The lock's filling up nicely. Just going to lift this other panel. Now here's something I didn't notice before, but there is a boil of water from there, and I've just realised, if I look here, this paddle isn't all the way down, and that's another good way of spoiling your boating day. If somebody's closed the paddle but not all the way down, especially when you're already short of water, it can cause more problems. I'm just going to finish putting this paddle down properly. When you're in this sort of situation, it's always best to check and double check, especially as the situation changes. In this case, the lock is now full, so leaks are more prominent. I can't see any more source of water other than the leak through the middle of the gate. Now it's just a waiting game, so I'm going to have my breakfast and we'll see how the water's coming up in a few minutes. Still a little bit of water going through the lock, but nothing I'm concerned with. In fact, it's probably just the level increasing in the pound that's causing some of this water to come in. It's filling nicely. I don't think it'll be long before I can get through. I'm just going to open the bottom gates of the next lock so that I can come straight in. But I'm going to leave the paddle on just in case I get stuck in the middle of the pound. All I'll need to do is wait and the level will rise and I can float off again. Just to give you some idea of just how quickly these locks empty in comparison with how quick they fill, I've just raised both paddles here. I'm going to see if we can push the gate open, and I can with the full top paddle. It's something you've got to be very careful on these locks. If you've left a paddle open, it's very easy to forget, not realise, boat comes out, you'd never know. You just thought, oh well, that took a bit longer than the others. So as we already knew, we've robbed Peter to pay Paul. However, the water level is looking quite good in this pound now, so I'm actually going to close this paddle off to save taking any more water out of this one. I think there's adequate water in there to get the boat through, and because we've still left the paddle on up there, hopefully this pound will start refilling shortly. Right, well, that's locked, closed. Still not quite on level, but we're really not far off it. Probably no more than taking a lock full out of the pound, to be fair. To overfill a pound when you're filling it, because then you end up wasting water. Of course, now I'm in the lock, I'm ready to fill it. You can see the problem I've caused myself. The same as we had before, an empty pound. Which is why I went up to lift the paddle at the next lock. It obviously wasn't enough water. So I'm going to have to go up there and feed some more water down. But this is a good reason why not to leave a paddle running on its own if there's any boats in a pound. If there are any boats moored on a shallow mooring, get caught up on the brickwork for example, it may cause them to sink. So while I've left these paddles alone, because I know there's no boats moored in this flight, unless it's a particularly long pound, and we're talking miles here really, don't leave paddles unattended. We do have an advantage with this pound. It's much shorter than the other one. It didn't start quite so empty, and therefore it won't take long to refill it. And in fact, I think once the boat's more or less ready at the lock, I'll try and get over the sill so I'm not using too much water, because I'll need it in the next pound. Now, if you had extra crew members, the best thing to do is send them to the top of the lock flight. In this case, it's a 5 lock, so it's not very far. And get them to send water down from the top. That way, you don't end up stealing water from yourself. And that's the beauty of calling CRT out, of course, is, well, they might come down and see what your predicament is first. They'll then go up to the top of the flight and start water running down it. Not quite full yet, but these shorter pounds are generally designed to have a greater operating range, because they realise that just filling a lock will take a good foot off it, so you still need to be able to get your boat out. We'll see if we can squeeze over the sill here, save a bit of time. I've left the ground paddle open, so it gives it water another way into the lock, because obviously the boat's filling the lock now completely. Just nicely floating out, just taking it very slowly. Probably over the shallowest bit. I'll go and close the gate and get myself into the next lock. This pound is very low, lower than I'd like, to be fair. I can just feel it scraping off the mud on the offside there. It's deeper towards the tide path, so I'm going to go over that way a little. But I've still got a paddle on at the lock, so if I do end up aground, I just have to wait and I'll start floating again. I'd be lucky to get through at that. So I've come to a grinding halt, but it's alright, I'll just sit and wait. Let the water level rise itself. On the move again. Take it nice and steady. Groundhog day again, but I was expecting this. Of course, I didn't put a feed on further up, so I'm going to close the boat up, walk up to the top of the flight and let some water down. So at the summit lock, it's empty, which is a shame. some water down. So this will be the last one I need to worry about refilling. However, with that in mind, I don't want to waste water, so I'm not going to put a full paddle on. Back to the boat now. I opened the top gate and found it a bit hard to push open. A bit of water coming out the bottom there. So I'm going to try and get myself out of this lock as quick as possible, so that I'm not wasting any more water than I need to. Although to be fair, it's going into a pound that needs more water. When I get out of sight of my boat, I always lock it up, just extra safety. This time I forgot to leave a paddle open, and also I think it's lower than it was before. Let's come to a grinding halt. I think it's on the sill. You can also see the water trying to rush to get in as well. Come to a stop again. You can see the water trying to get past the boat. It's in a situation like this, if I knew I wasn't getting enough water down from the next lock, would empty, the boat would end up stuck on the sill. However, I've got a paddle on at the next lock, water's coming down slowly, and the boat's moving again. So I've got myself out of the lock. The lock's already empty enough, so there is a good leak on it. Now I'm out of it and the gate's shut, I'm not wasting any more water on this pound. I'm just still waiting for it to get a bit more water in it, because I don't think I'm going to get through it as it stands. I'm rocking and rolling through this pound, but I've got to the lock. Hopefully I can get in it. See a volunteer at the top lock now, so hopefully they'll sort that lock out for me. Come on, boat, you can do it. in. Not sure what's going on at the top lock, but it seems to be filling it. I'll see if I can give him a shout. Finally at the top. Took some doing on a volunteer as a boat coming down, so I'm going to see if I can let a little bit more water through this lock just to help fill the pounds down below, although they don't seem too bad now actually. And if I can get through, anybody can. There's somebody following me, so I'm going to start getting this lock ready for him. Just going to have a look. That water I end up wasting through this lock will help fill the pound. And if I put enough on, or not too much, if I've got it just right, I should be able to get myself out of the lock and shut the gate in one reasonably swift motion and see how well that works. Let me prop wash around the gate. And the gate closes. The lock started emptying, ready for the next trap.